Imagine for a second that your body is a high-end sports car. Or, let's be real, maybe just a really reliable high-mileage sedan.
Right.
Either way, under the hood, there is a battery. And when you're 20, that battery is fully charged. It's cranking out power. It's repairing parts on the fly. The engine is just humming. But then, time
Time
happens.
always happens. And unfortunately, the warranty expires.
Exactly. And by the time you hit 50, that battery isn't just slightly worn down. It is holding about half the charge it used to. Literally.
Yeah, the levels of a specific molecule that acts as that battery drop by approximately 50% between the ages of 20 and 50.
Which is just a massive drop.
It's huge.
Yeah.
And it correlates perfectly with why we feel the way we do in middle age. The lower energy, that creeping brain fog.
The fact that a hard workout leaves you sore for 3 days instead of one.
Right, exactly.
So today for our deep dive, we're talking about that battery. It's called NAD plus NLA, or nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide if you really want to impress your friends at a dinner party.
I wouldn't recommend trying to say that 3 times fast.
No, definitely not. But if you've been online lately, you know the hype around this is absolutely deafening.
It really is. It's currently the crown jewel of the longevity market right now. Everyone wants more of it.
But it is also a total Wild West out there. You've got influencers pushing powders, confusing acronyms like NMN, NR, NA, and honestly, supplements that might just be expensive dust.
Yeah, the quality control is a major issue we need to get into.
Right. So our mission today is to cut through all that noise. We've got a stack of clinical trials, industry reports, expert guides. We are going to find out what actually works, what's dangerous hype, and this part really surprised me when we were researching what this has to do with your liver and even fertility.
It's a really complex landscape, but the biology underneath it is incredibly compelling.
So let's start at the very bottom. What exactly is NAD plus doing in there? Why does my cellular battery actually need it?
Think of NAD+ as a coenzyme that is found in every single living cell. It's the ignition key for 2 major processes. First, it powers your mitochondria.
Okay, the powerhouse of the cell.
Right, the energy production.
Huh.
Without NAD plus TAN, your cells literally cannot generate the energy to function.
So simply put, low NAD plus equals low energy.
Precisely. But the second function is arguably more critical for aging. NAD+ is essential for DNA repair. It activates a family of proteins called sirtuins.
Sirtuins, I've seen them called longevity genes in some of the literature.
Yes, exactly.
I like to think of them as the construction crew that fixes the potholes in our DNA highway.
That is a great analogy. But here's the catch. Sirtuins are NAD dependent.
Meaning they need the battery to run.
Right. If you don't have enough NAD plus slate hand, the construction crew just doesn't show up to work. The potholes, the DNA damage, they accumulate.
And that accumulation is just aging.
In a nutshell, yes.
Yeah.
That is what we call aging.
Okay, so the logic seems really simple then. My NAD plus is dropping, so I should just eat some NAD plus. Right, just pass the NAD plus sandwich.
I mean, if only it were that simple. The problem is that the NAD plus molecule itself is quite large and very fragile.
So it doesn't survive digestion.
Exactly. If you ingest it directly, it gets broken down by your stomach acid before it can do any good. It just doesn't get into your cells.
So we have to sneak it in.
Right. We use precursors. Think of them as building blocks that your body can easily absorb and then build into NAD plus once they're safely inside the cell.
And this is where the alphabet soup comes in. In the sources we looked at, there are 3 main characters. Let's break them down so we know what we're looking at on the label. First up, NMN.
Nicotinamide mononucleotide. This is a direct precursor. It is very close to being NAD plus quad. It just needs one quick chemical step inside the cell to convert.
Okay, and then we have NR.
Nicotinamide riboside. This one is a smaller molecule. Because it's smaller, it's often cited for its ability to cross cell barriers more easily.
And lastly, the old school one,
Yeah.
NA.
Nicotinic acid, better known as niacin or vitamin B3.
The one that makes you turn red.
Yes, the flush. It works as a precursor, but it has that nasty side effect called flushing. It makes your skin turn bright red, it can burn or itch.
Which really limits how much people are willing to take. I mean, nobody wants to look like a tomato just to feel a bit younger.
No, they don't. So that is why everyone is currently fighting over NMN versus NR.
But here's the big question, the one that really matters to you listening right now. Does taking these precursors actually do anything in humans? Or are we just making really expensive urine?
Well, for a long time, we only had mouse studies. And I always say mice respond amazingly to everything.
Right, you give a mouse NMN and it runs a marathon.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But recently, we finally got some solid human data.
Yeah, we're looking at a specific study from 2022, the Yi et al. Study, and this was the gold standard. Randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled.
And importantly, it was done on healthy, middle-aged adults, aged 40 to 65.
So not mice, and not people who were already sick.
Right, they wanted to see if it helped regular, healthy aging.
So they took 80 people and split them into groups. One group got a placebo, the others got NMN, but at different daily doses, 300 milligrams, 600 milligrams, and 900 milligrams.
And they did this for 60 days.
So what actually happened?
First, they did a blood test to see if the NMN actually got into the system. And the answer is yes. NAD plus concentrations in the blood increased significantly in all the treated groups.
But was more always better?
Not necessarily. The 600 milligram and 900 milligram doses performed the best. They were significantly better than the 300 milligram dose.
Okay.
However, there was no statistical difference between taking 600 and 900.
So 600 milligrams seems to be the sweet spot. You get the maximum boost without wasting product. But did they feel different? Like, did they actually function better?
They tested this with the 6-minute walking test. It is exactly what it sounds like. How far can you walk in 6 minutes? It's a standard measure of endurance and aerobic capacity.
What did it show?
The placebo group, 0 change. But the groups taking 600 and 900 milligrams of NMN saw a significant increase in their walking distance.
Wow.
Yeah, their bodies were physically capable of doing more work.
Okay, so that's physical performance. But here's the part of the study that really blew my mind. They measured biological age,
Yes, they used an algorithm called Aging.ai 3.0.
which is a blood biological age clock, right?
Exactly. It looks at a panel of standard blood markers, things like cholesterol, liver enzymes, hemoglobin, and it calculates how old your body looks biologically, regardless of what your birth certificate says.
And the results were kind of shocking. Over the 60 days of the trial, the placebo group actually got older biologically,
Right, their markers drifted in the wrong direction.
which I guess is natural because we are aging every single day.
We are. But the NMN groups, they stayed completely flat.
That is wild.
It is. The NMN effectively prevented the biological aging that was observed in the control group.
It basically hit the pause button on that specific clock for 2 whole months.
It is very compelling. But we do have to be nuanced here. Not everything improved.
Right, let's talk about what didn't work.
For example, they looked at insulin resistance using a score called AMA-IR.
Because in animal studies, NMN usually fixes insulin issues, right?
It does. But in this human trial, there was no significant difference compared to the placebo.
So it's not a magic bullet for diabetes or blood sugar control, at least not in a 60-day time frame.
Right.
What about safety? Did anyone grow a third arm on the 900 milligram dose?
No, thankfully. Even at the highest 900 milligram dose, there were no serious adverse events. No weird lab abnormalities. It was very well tolerated.
So to summarize the science so far, 600 milligrams of NMN can boost your cellular battery, it can improve your physical endurance, and it might even pause your biological clock.
That's what the data shows.
That sounds amazing. But now we really have to talk about the reality of actually buying this stuff, because this market it's messy.
Messy is a very polite word for it. It is an absolute minefield.
Because the FDA doesn't strictly regulate these supplements before they hit the shelf, right?
Exactly. Quality control is entirely voluntary for these companies.
We looked at a 2025 study that was mentioned in a guide by Goldman Labs. They basically tested a bunch of NAD plus supplements right off the shelf, and the results were terrifying.
They were. They found that 76% of the tested supplements had much less NAD plus than the label claimed.
And it gets worse.
It does get worse.
Huh?
57% of them had none at all.
Zero.
Zero. You're essentially buying a very expensive capsule of rice flour.
Why is that happening? Is it just pure fraud?
It's partly fraud, definitely, but
Oh.
it's also a chemistry problem. NMN and NAD plus are highly unstable molecules.
Meaning they break down easily.
Yes. If they aren't stabilized properly during manufacturing, or even if they just sit in a hot warehouse for a week, they degrade.
Sure.
So even a well-meaning company might be selling you a completely degraded product by the time it reaches your door.
And there's another layer to this Wild West that we found. This came from the NutriProfit source, so we reviewed. It's the hidden incentives driving the hype.
This is crucial for consumers to understand.
Right. If you are reading a blog or watching a TikTok where someone is highly recommending a specific brand of NMN, you really need to follow the money.
We looked at the affiliate structures for some of these supplement brands. These companies offer massive commissions to influencers,
We saw rates of 30 to 40% commission on every single sale.
which is astronomical in retail.
And they have something called lifetime cookies.
Yes. That means if you click an influencer's link today and buy a bottle, and then you just go back to the website directly and buy another bottle 6 months later.
That influencer still gets paid.
Forever. As long as you keep reordering, they get a cut.
Plus, we saw that they have a $120 minimum payout threshold. So these affiliates are highly motivated to push big bundles.
Exactly. It creates this environment where actual scientific efficacy takes a back seat to affiliate payouts. That glowing review you're watching might be genuine, sure, or it might be because they are making $40 on your order plus a cut of everything you buy for the rest of your life.
It's wild. So how do we actually get the molecule into our blood safely if standard pills are so iffy? In the sources, there was a lot of talk about liposomal delivery.
Yes, liposomal technology. This is where they wrap the active molecule, the NMN or the NR, in a tiny fat bubble.
A liposome,
Right.
like a microscopic bodyguard.
That's a great way to put it. It protects the fragile molecule from your harsh stomach acid.
And does it work?
According to a study cited by Goldman Labs, liposomal formulas could increase absorption by 5.32 times compared to standard capsules.
Wow, over 5 times the absorption.
Yes. So if you are going to invest in these, the delivery method really matters. Brands like Quicksilver Scientific use this. It's a way around the degradation problem.
Okay, let's pivot a bit. We've been talking about general aging and endurance. But in our deep dive, we found some really specific, fascinating applications for NAD plus boosters that go way beyond just wanting to walk faster.
Yes, targeted applications.
Let's talk about the liver first.
This comes from the insights of Dr. Cara Fitzgerald.
Hmm.
She highlights a massive, often silent problem, which is NAFLD, non-alcoholic fatty liver disease.
It affects a huge chunk of the population.
It does, and she connects it directly back to our battery, NAD plus key.
How so?
Well, it's a connection between NAD plus and another crucial molecule called glutathione.
Glutathione is the body's master antioxidant.
Exactly. And in fatty liver disease, both your NAD plus and your glutathione are severely depleted.
And she had this great, almost joke-like way of explaining how your body makes glutathione. The 3 amino acids walk into a bar scenario.
I love that analogy. To make glutathione, your liver needs 3 specific amino acids to show up at the bar together: glycine, cysteine, and glutamate. Dr. Fitzgerald points out that in metabolic disease, the bottleneck is almost always glycine. You just run out of it. It's the limiting factor.
And she mentions this thing called the GSG index, glutamate over serine plus glycine.
Right, it's a ratio. Basically, if that ratio is off, your liver is in serious trouble.
So what is her proposed cocktail to fix this bottleneck?
She suggests a very specific protocol. It involves taking serine,
Which the body converts to glycine.
yes, plus NAC, which is N-acetylcysteine, to provide the cysteine part of the trio,
Okay.
and then adding NR, nicotinamide riboside, to boost the NAD plus thing.
So you're basically refueling the antioxidant system and the cellular battery at the exact same time.
Exactly. And the mechanism here is that this specific combination actually helps the liver oxidize or burn the fat that is clogging it up.
That is a highly targeted metabolic intervention. It's not just blind supplementation.
No, it's very precise biochemistry.
Fascinating. Now let's look at the second specific application we found, fertility.
Yes.
This one came from the Theralogics source.
Specifically, they are targeting egg quality in women trying to conceive.
Because egg quality is tied to mitochondria, right?
Heavily tied. As women age, egg quality declines largely because the mitochondria inside those eggs just lose energy. They literally run out of NAD plus can.
So can boosting NAD plus actually help with that?
The science is suggesting yes.
Yeah.
The specific product discussed in the source, Oven-ADD plus CoK, combines NR with an ingredient called pterostilbene.
Pterostilbene. Is that a dinosaur?
It sounds like one. No, it's a compound found naturally in blueberries.
Okay, blueberries. Got it.
It's chemically very similar to resveratrol, but it absorbs much better in the body. It acts as a partner to the NR. The whole idea is to supercharge the egg's energy production prior to conception.
But there is a huge, bold print warning here that we absolutely need to mention to anyone listening.
Yes, absolutely. The source explicitly states you should only take this for preconception. Once you are pregnant, you must stop immediately.
Stop taking it entirely.
Yes. The safety of these NAD plus boosters during actual pregnancy has not been established. Do not experiment while you are pregnant.
Very clear. Okay, so we've covered the biology, the frankly terrifying scams in the market, and some specific uses for liver health and egg quality.
Right.
I want to take a brief detour into the geeky side of things for a minute.
Let's do it.
how is the stuff actually made? Because you mentioned earlier that it's unstable and hard to manufacture properly.
It is. And this is where a concept called green chemistry could review in the journal Frontiers in Bioengineering.
Because the old way of making vitamin B3 and these NAD precursors was pretty gross, right?
It was terrible for the environment. It relied on traditional chemical synthesis. It used petroleum-derived materials, specifically a chemical called 3-picoline.
Sounds toxic.
It is. The process requires extremely high heat, and it produces a ton of toxic nitrogen oxide waste, NOx. It's just a dirty process.
And now, how are they changing it?
Now the industry is rapidly moving towards something called biocatalysis, or enzymatic synthesis.
Which means using microbes.
Exactly. They use engineered bacteria, things like E. coli or Pseudomonas, and they use specific enzymes called nitrolyses to act as tiny biological factories.
So they just feed the bacteria raw materials?
Yes, they feed them substrates, and the bacteria naturally convert them into B3 or precursors like NMN.
So it's fermented,
Yeah.
essentially, like making beer or kombucha.
In a way, yes.
Hmm.
And the benefits are massive. It operates at mild room temperatures. It produces almost zero toxic waste.
And I imagine it's purer.
Crucially, yes, it produces a much higher purity product. And given the massive quality control crisis we talked about earlier with the 57% of fake supplements, getting the manufacturing right at the source is the very first step to creating a trustworthy product.
So cleaner production might actually lead to bottles that contain what they say they do.
That is certainly the hope of the industry.
Okay, let's unpack all of this. We have covered a ton of ground today. What are the big actionable takeaways for someone listening who is thinking, I really need to charge my cellular battery?
First and foremost, the science is real. NAD+ is a legitimate biological target. It is not just snake oil. The clinical trial clearly showed that 600 milligrams of NMN daily significantly improved physical endurance and paused biological aging markers in healthy adults.
But the market is a minefield.
Correct. You absolutely cannot just go online and buy the cheapest bottle of NMN you find. The failure rate is way too high.
So what is the actionable advice there?
You need to look for COAs.
Certificates of analysis.
Yes. Third-party testing. If a company will not publicly show you a recent independent lab test proving their product has the stated amount of NMN or NR, just don't buy it.
And what about the labels themselves?
Be highly skeptical of anything labeled a proprietary blend. That is often just a way to hide the fact that they're underdosing the expensive active ingredients. You need to know you are actually hitting that 600 milligram range if you want to replicate the results of the yeast study.
And also think about why you're taking it.
Right. Tailor it to your needs. If you want general endurance and anti-aging, NMN seems to have the clinical edge right now.
But if you are worried about your liver health,
Look into Dr. Fitzgerald's protocol, that specific serine, NAC, and NR cocktail.
and for fertility and egg quality, look for the NR and pterostyl combination. But again, stop if you get pregnant.
Exactly.
Here's where it gets really interesting for me, just philosophically.
Yeah.
In that clinical trial, the placebo group aged biologically over just 60 days.
Right. Their blood markers aged.
But the NMN group stood still. Their clock paused.
It raises a very profound question about human biology.
Right. If we can pause the biological clock, even for just a short time with a supplement, at what point do we stop treating aging as this inevitable, unstoppable slide?
And start treating it as a manageable condition.
Exactly, like high blood pressure or high cholesterol. You take something to manage it.
That is exactly the paradigm shift that the field of geroscience is pushing for right now. If aging is fundamentally just an accumulation of cellular damage, like those potholes in the DNA highway, and we can find ways to repair that damage and keep the battery charged.
Then aging becomes treatable.
Treatable. We aren't fully there yet, obviously, but studies like this show we are definitely knocking on the door.
It's a lot to think about. Check your sources, demand lab tests, and maybe keep an eye on your biological clock. Thanks for taking the plunge into the research with us today.
Always a pleasure.